Okay, so I made a far artsier one. I was playing around with this today during office hours while I was waiting for y'all to come check in. I'm going to walk you through quickly how I made this one. Because there's a whole lot you can do with this. Pretty much any kind of silhouette shape you like, you can turn into a nameplate. So let's again use our time machine and we're going to roll back bar. We're going to go all the way back to the beginning. Boop. Cool. So, it started off with just this sketch here. I made this sketch using splines. So the spline tool is up here. And what that basically lets you do is every time you click, it kind of connects the dots and tries to make them all nice and rounded and tangent for you. And so I just made one spline, and then I used a line here, and I just mirrored it across. So that I ended up with this main extrusion here that went out that way. And I knew I was going to kind of pattern that, like kind of like copy and paste it and circle it around. But I wanted to like kind of hollow it out and make it a little bit flatter and stuff in other places. So what I did was I made sketches 2 and 3 here. So sketch 3 here is kind of like an internal one. So I used the offset entities and then kind of trimmed away some stuff and made that extrusion. And I did a top part because I was originally envisioning putting like my name engraved into here. And then I cut all the way through. So I used the extruded cut all the way through with those. And then I went to filleting. So I played around with that and said, let's fillet all these edges in here. And then what I did is I used the circular pattern tool. Now the circular pattern tool is pretty cool. So that button is up here. So yours might be this button right here, linear pattern right now. But you can choose circular pattern instead. And what I want to do is just copy and paste it around in a circle a bunch of times. And so that's what I did. So let me show you how that works. So it asks you what entities you want to pattern. And so I just selected this one, part 1. Which you can do. You can do just little features as well. Like you can do this as a feature pattern if you just want to feature, like pattern certain parts of it. But I wanted to pattern the whole solid body there, so I used the part pattern. And then I used the edge of extrude 1 down here. So I kind of patterned it around this edge down here in the bottom, or which is no longer there. Interesting. So before I had rounded that was a pointed edge, and I circular patterned it around that, and it created it there. In fact, let me show you what that looked like. This actually came to kind of more of a point, kind of like that, and I was able to have that flat edge there. I later went back and rounded that out, which is why that's kind of no longer there, but it kind of still figures out where you want it to pattern around. And then I had this shape. So I can hide the sketch now, and this all fits within here. But then I was looking a little thin and flimsy in some other places, so I added some fillets to kind of solid that up. Which one are you looking for? Here. I was trying to get all those little edges in there. Interesting. Okay, cool. So what it did was, let me just clear them all, if it'll let me. So I did all these little edges in here, which are no longer. Oh, that's why. Okay, cool. So we're gonna Control Z. 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 Control Z. And let's see if that fixes things. There we go. Cool. Wait, no, maybe not. Let's see here. Cool, that fixes things. So I rounded out all of those things in there. And then let's see what I do next. I cut away those things. So I just kind of used a circular sketch in here. So I just kind of like used that edge, and I wanted to cut it away. Because what I eventually wanted to do was kind of tilt it on this edge here, so that way these edges would actually kind of be facing up. So I wanted it to kind of rest in between these two crevices here. So I cut away, and then I filleted those top edges so they disappeared. And then I added in some circles. So I just kind of drew a circle here, made it nice and tangent to these things, so we kind of filled it up to kind of get some like little bulbs and get some more contrast in that pattern there. And then I filleted in those edges where they connect to round that out and get kind of a nice, it's almost kind of like the inverse of this shape here. So it's kind of like mirrored there, which is kind of cool. And then I just cut holes through. So I did a sketch. I just made all these circles equal to each other and just made it even more see-through. And then I added, I believe, these little pedestals. So that was going to become my nameplate, where I would actually engrave my name onto it. And I thought, like, so it would rest kind of on this, kind of like this. Let me see if I can. Yeah, so it would rest like that, so you can kind of see the name kind of angled up and away from you. But what I did is I did some filleting to curl some things in. So I filleted those, so that way this would be a nice little rounded edge here, so it would fit a little bit neater there, not maybe shatter when I slammed it down or anything. Filleted that, and then did some chamfers on these to kind of like make it a little more like a pedestal for the name. And then I went and I just extruded my name. Yep, Andrew J. Tessier right there. And then on the other side, I was going to, but I was like, wait, I'll just do something for me, right? So if that's sitting on my desk away from me so that people walk in, they can see that. This one will be for me. And so I threw in my MC Delta T. So that's how I made this one. So you can keep it kind of simple-ish, like I showed you on my first one, or you can do something really artsy like this one and play around with patterns and stuff like that. Totally up to you. Hopefully you found that helpful.